to how quantum mechanics would seem like something harder than it actually is. It's equivalency of what convergent and divergence is in calculus. Something meandering and something throwing outwards. The laws of nature can be summed up of as above is so below. The second most summing up of nature has a third layer, which makes it for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. In combining both of those together, you can look at electricity as it being ran off of modules and antennas, where if you have a module with antenna inside of it, you would have to space out the regions of the module for the antenna to take an effect. This is what gray matter could do. That's why the surfaces of things are so important to understand, because there's a thing of surface tension, and this would be a giant when it's come to what the thing's actually done to perform. What's under the hood? This data is kind of like how medicine is. And in medicine, it's always a practice because no one is able to have great grasps on the fundamental causes, such as antivenoms versus inflammatory things versus, you know, you can probably come up with 5 fundamentals of medicine, and then just when they're getting digested or consumed, if they're to break out and into different areas, be executing the body to heal it as properly as possible, is a science of like quantum mechanics, because it has to deal with modules and antennas have a lot of different configurations in order to outset data. Science would have it real important to know, is the universe expanding, or is it at a stagnant, or is it slowing down? Because then the shape of the universe would have been a horse saddle, a triangle, or a circle. This is one outskirt of which is really important, because it would make the GPS systems more accurate, knowing just what the outcome is in the measurement. I just made that part up, but it should have been included within GPS systemry. But nonetheless, it's that important to know. And that would make it not get confused with the big to the small. And so then when people are belittled, it's like you would look around and you would see that this isn't a first world capitalist free market. When you would go up into a shop and the shop doesn't have the correct things, and so then what, equally the wages of sin are death, and that's like a value. So I think it's extremely important to know, when the devil got cast out of heaven, did he get cast to planet Earth? And so how much weight does the Earth weigh in the solar system with the bad schematics of things not being handled right? Like you're told your activity is what's causing the environment to change for the worse, or you being labeled as a consumer good and getting thrown at the political parties' threats, like Russia being a Christian nationalist country. They don't want that because it enforces what a strong nuclear family is. And so they would make Putin look like an enemy. So by their making people into consumer goods to throw at their political enemy, Russia. And so would the devil have then been cast to the universe, or was he cast to what is beyond the observable universe, to be an interplay of the earth and the universe? Those are three outcomes I find equally important to the universe. Is it a horse saddle, a triangle, or a circle? Because it gives the same characteristic missing from the gap between Avogadro's number to the most accurate AI iClouds. And in Ant-Man, he shrinks, and then he's like, if I go into an infinite shrink, I'd be stuck there forever. It's because he would continue to shrink, and though his body is of value, it would become massless if it had an infinite shrink, because him not being able to stop shrinking would mean that he's traveling at the speed of light, which would mean that he's massless. It's Einstein who would ask, what if we had our body and we were traveling on one particle of light? What would that reaction of chemistry be like to its surroundings? I gotta say something. The amount of, if you could know what the Big Bang was and then codify it from there with modulating giant antenna and modules of wiring, that would be a great form of information, because you could have as a generator and a motherboard with switches. But since that's not possible, the next worst thing in getting that would be to have what the offshoot of that would be, and the chaotic dystrophy. And the difference of what a zit is versus a sunburn that turns into a boil, or a bug bite that flares up, are three different things. But the amount of resemblance is uncanny. If you have the water underneath your sunburn, that's, you know, more of a straight form, versus if it's a bug bite, it's gonna be like this itchy stuff. And then if it's a zit, it doesn't really burn, it just has this puff, and so that can be a control group. But what's important is, like, in extreme cases of either of them, how similar they can look, and so the similarity between that versus if there was like a giant immune system with everyone in the world and you were to guess all about it, it would be like a Big Bang rendition we were just explaining. Oh, it's the same thing I was trying to explain with what's missing. Wait 1 second. So in the color of law, when you're dressing up something that real that isn't, it's a difference than the rule of law, because, you know, there's a whole bunch of gray area. The more that you can animate gray area is when you can say something that isn't like a threat being in a democracy. Democracies where you get to choose who you want to rule. And by them like trying to make Donald Trump not be able to be elected goes against their definition at base level. It's just that like they're scared of